Why your silence threatens them more than your words. Carl Jung. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to have an almost magnetic control over the atmosphere around them without uttering a single word? They don't raise their voices, they don't plead for attention. Instead, they simply pull back. And suddenly, everything shifts. The mood changes. People start wondering, chasing, questioning. Now imagine if you did the same. If you stopped reacting instantly to everything. If you chose silence over the automatic reply, calm withdrawal instead of an emotional explosion, what do you think would happen? Here's the truth. When you're no longer constantly available, emotionally, physically, or mentally, the people around you go into a kind of crisis. Why? Because they're used to controlling you through your reactions, your impulses, your predictability. But the day you step back, the game changes. Those who thought they had you figured out suddenly realize they don't know you at all. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." So think about it. When you become less accessible, who gets restless? Who gets irritated? Who tries to provoke you just to squeeze out an emotion? Their reactions reveal far more about them than they do about you. And, more importantly, they reveal how much you've been manipulated without even realizing it. You've been giving yourself away to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to hold on to people who, deep down, were never truly with you. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, every time you answer immediately, every time you react emotionally, you hand over a little piece of your energy. And what's left at the end of the day? Exhaustion, frustration, a strange emptiness you can't quite explain. I'll tell you why. Because you've been too available for people who don't even deserve a minute of your silence. This isn't about turning your back on the world, it's about choosing you. It's about what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, authentic, complete. And it starts when you realize that silence can be more powerful than 1,000 arguments. That withdrawal, when it's intentional, not escapist, is an act of strength. So, I'll ask you directly, how much longer will you let other people's emotions control you? How much longer will you play the puppet, reacting every time someone pokes at an old wound? Maybe it's time to cut the strings, to step back, to become a mystery. Because when you stop being constantly available, everything changes. You've been taught since childhood to always be present, to answer quickly, to please, to agree even when it feels wrong. You've been conditioned to believe your value comes from being accessible. But here's the truth you probably haven't heard so clearly before. Being too available isn't a virtue, it's a prison. As long as you believe you have to be emotionally, mentally, or physically accessible all the time, you'll be manipulated, drained, and forgotten the moment you're no longer useful. Why? Because constant availability makes you predictable, and predictable things become tools. People use you like an emotional emergency button. They press it for attention, comfort, validation, and then they put you right back on the shelf. You don't see it happening because you're stuck in the illusion that showing up for everyone means someone will show up for you. But it doesn't work that way. Jung talked about the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted, loved, and acknowledged. It's this mask that keeps you overly available. You say it's fine when you're drowning inside. You reply instantly, even when you're exhausted. You explain, defend, justify, as if you owe the world a constant report. But here's the reality. The more you center yourself on other people's stages, the more you vanish from your own. Being available 24/7 is a subtle form of self-abandonment. It's disguised as kindness, but it's really a way to chase approval, avoid rejection, and control how people see you. And that control has a price: your peace. Your energy isn't infinite, it's incredibly limited, and those who demand constant access to you don't actually want you. They want what you give them: attention, validation, company. The moment you change, set boundaries, stop reacting, they'll call you distant or strange. Not because you've changed for the worse, but because you've stopped being useful in their game. Here's the harsh part. The more available you are, the less people value you. What's too easy to get becomes disposable. No one respects what they don't have to earn. So, think about it. Who truly deserves your time, your attention, your presence? Or maybe the better question is, who actually deserves your absence? Before you answer, we need to get to the root of this. Why do we react so easily? Why do we say yes when we want to say no? Why do we keep giving in? Carl Jung called it psychic energy. And once you understand how it works, you'll realize how much of it you've been giving away and how to protect it. We'll dig into that in the next part. But for now, remember, your energy is all you have. If you don't learn to protect it, someone else will use it against you. Carl Jung didn't see the human mind as some mechanical machine that just reacts without consequence. He saw it as an energy system. Every thought you have, every emotion you feel, every action you take consumes a portion of that energy. The real question is, are you deciding where that energy goes, or are you letting the world decide for you? Every time you react without thinking, you're spending your psychic energy. When you rush to defend yourself against a meaningless criticism, when you answer a provocation just to set the record straight, when you waste hours in useless arguments or keep trying to please people who don't value you, you're burning energy on things that will never nourish you. And here's a paradox Jung pointed out. What you resist persists. The more you fight certain things, the more you bind yourself to them. People who feel emotionally exhausted all the time aren't weak, they're just misdirected. And exhaustion makes you vulnerable. When you're running on empty, you become easy prey. Manipulative, opportunistic, and emotionally dependent people can smell that vulnerability. They see that you can't guard your energy. They see that you react to everything. They see you scrambling to fix the world around you, and they take full advantage. A healthy mind, according to Jung, knows how to keep energy within the system. That means being able to say no without guilt, being able to stay silent without feeling like a coward, being able to observe without jumping in immediately. Because real power doesn't come from reacting, it comes from choosing when and how to act. And that kind of choice only comes from knowing yourself well enough to spot your own triggers. Think about it. How many nights have you lost sleep replaying an unresolved conversation? How many times have you replayed in your mind what you should have said? How many hours have you wasted trying to figure out why someone treated you badly? That's your energy, being siphoned away without return. You're keeping alive situations that should have been buried long ago. You're fueling cycles that only continue because you keep feeding them with your attention. Your psychic energy works like a protective field. When it's well guarded, you carry a presence that commands respect without you having to speak. But when it's scattered, when you give it away too freely, you become invisible, fragile, reactive. And the world has no mercy for those who give themselves away too easily. So you have to start noticing your own triggers. Ask yourself, what situations make me react without thinking? What words instantly pull me into an argument? Who makes me lose my center? Those are the places where your energy leaks. And that's exactly where you need to start doing the work, not to become cold or indifferent, but to become selective, to become sovereign over yourself. And here's one of Jung's most powerful insights. When you conserve your energy, you break the projections other people put on you. This is where things get uncomfortable, because now we step into the territory of silent manipulation. Opportunistic people thrive on the energy of others. And the more emotionally available you are, the more you become a blank canvas for them to project onto. Think about that friend who only calls when they're in crisis. That partner who only lights up when you're rescuing them. That person who showers you with praise, as long as you're serving their needs. None of that is random. They're not connecting with you. They're connecting with the role you play for them. And why do you keep playing that role? Often, it's fear. Fear of disappointing someone, fear of being unloved, fear of being abandoned. The most effective manipulation doesn't happen with shouting or threats. It happens quietly, in the guilt you feel, in the belief that you owe someone your time, your attention, your energy. Here's the dangerous truth. Manipulators don't have to force you into anything. They just need you to keep reacting the way you always have. But the moment you stop reacting, the moment you stop explaining yourself, stop justifying, stop immediately fixing, the entire game collapses. The mask they've placed on you falls away, and now they're faced with something they've avoided all along, themselves. Your unavailability forces others to confront their own emptiness. Your silence becomes a mirror they can't control, and for many, that's unbearable. That's when you'll see the pushback. The criticisms, the accusations, the emotional drama, not because you're wrong, but because you've stopped being useful in their story. Jung put it bluntly, we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. When you stop feeding other people's cycles, their shadows come out, and those shadows can be ugly. So the question becomes, are you ready to face the discomfort that comes with this shift? The rejection, the misunderstandings, even the attacks that might come your way when you start protecting your energy? Because it's in that discomfort, in that silence, that a different kind of strength is born. And in the next part, we're going to dig into why silence isn't just absence. It's one of the most devastatingly effective tools you have in reshaping how the world interacts with you. We live in a world that is unbearably loud. Everyone wants to be heard, to respond instantly, to jump into arguments and prove their point, often at the expense of their own peace. But there's a hidden kind of power, one so few understand and even fewer master, the power of silence. And I'm not talking about the silence of fear or passivity. I'm talking about conscious, strategic, razor-sharp silence, the kind that is not absence but amplified presence. Jung didn't see silence as an empty void. He saw it as fertile ground, space where awareness grows, where you can actually hear yourself think. When you stop reacting, you start observing. And in observing, you begin to see patterns you never noticed before. Patterns of manipulation, cycles of self-sabotage, emotional traps that have kept you stuck for years. Silence is dangerous to those who thrive on your reactions. Have you ever noticed how certain people panic when you don't respond, when you don't rush to explain, when you simply disappear for a while? It's not because they truly miss you, it's because your silence removes their ability to control the story. As long as you're speaking, they can keep you in the game. But when you go quiet, you change the rules. And anyone who depends on your reactions will feel destabilized. Because here's the truth. Silence is not the absence of voice. It's mastery over your own energy. It's refusing to be dragged into someone else's emotional storm. It's making the conscious choice not to fight battles that cost you your peace. Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming your truest self, requires this distance. Only in silence can you separate your own voice from the noise of the world. But here's the catch. Silence has a cost. It will strip away relationships that were built on your usefulness, not your essence. It will make you look cold to people who never wanted to know your depth. It will make you incomprehensible to those who only valued the role you played in their lives. And yes, it will make some people call you arrogant, but all of that is just a reaction from those who benefited from the version of you that overextended, overexplained, overgave. The deeper truth is this: the more you mature, the more selective you become with your words. You start to understand that every sentence you speak is an investment of energy, and not everyone is worthy of that investment. Sometimes silence is not withdrawal, it's sovereignty. It's the language of those who no longer feel the need to prove anything to anyone. Silence can be deeply uncomfortable because it forces the other person to sit with themselves. It forces them to confront their own internal noise, and that discomfort says far more about them than any speech you could give. You don't need to explain why you're not engaging. You don't need to justify your absence. Your silence will speak for itself. And those who feel most threatened by it are often the ones who relied on your chaos to stabilize their own. But here's the thing. The most transformative silence isn't the one that disturbs others. It's the one that rebuilds you. It's the silence that reconnects you to something deeper than external approval. The silence where you reclaim the energy you've been scattering into people and places that never deserved it. Because here's the truth. It's not enough to just block out the noise. You have to relearn how to channel your energy, where to send it, where to keep it, and where never to waste it again. This is where conscious unavailability comes in. It's not about being cold or rude or aloof. It's about knowing exactly what your time and energy are worth and refusing to give them away freely to people or situations that only deplete you. And it starts with small acts. Not replying right away. Taking a breath before you respond. Leaving the conversation before you're dragged into the chaos. Turning off your phone without guilt. Saying not today. Saying I'm not interested. Saying I'm not getting involved. And here's the liberating part. You don't need to explain these choices. You don't need to make your boundaries palatable. You owe nothing but truth to yourself. For a lot of people, that's unforgivable. Because when you refuse to explain yourself, you take away their last tool to keep you boxed into their narrative of who you should be. Jung understood that the individuation process always includes a period of isolation, not isolation born of depression, but a sacred withdrawal, a time to rebuild your identity away from the eyes and expectations of others. Want to measure your growth? Watch who drifts away when you become more private. See who tries to provoke you when you stop reacting. Notice who accuses you of changing when you finally start protecting your peace. These are not signs you're doing something wrong. They are proof you're freeing yourself. At first, this conscious unavailability will feel uncomfortable. You might feel guilty. You might wonder if you're being selfish. You'll hear people say you've become hard. But that's just the old conditioning talking, the belief that your worth comes from putting yourself second. Breaking that conditioning will cause friction, not just in you, but in everyone who benefited from your old self. But here's the reality. When you say no to the world, you are saying yes to yourself. When you leave a toxic environment, you are confirming that your peace is worth more than any false connection. And when you stop explaining yourself, you start earning a new kind of respect. But this shift has another stage, the part where your absence exposes wounds in others they never wanted to face. This is the moment where relationships break, where the loneliness sets in. But it's also the moment where your rebirth begins. And in the next part, we'll talk about that rebirth. How the loneliness of the strong isn't emptiness at all, but the doorway to your true freedom. When you finally stop being available to everyone, something profound happens. First, there's silence. Not the comfortable kind, the kind that feels like it echoes inside you. You'll question yourself. Did I do the right thing? Am I being too harsh? Am I pushing away people who actually care about me? That silence can feel heavy at first, but give it time. Slowly, it starts to shift. The silence begins to clean you out. It calms the constant mental noise. It heals the parts of you that were frayed from years of overgiving. Then, solitude arrives. And here's the key. This solitude isn't emptiness. It's presence. Your presence. The kind of presence that comes when you no longer betray yourself just to keep others close. In that space, where there was once confusion, you find clarity. Where there was once anxiety, you discover peace. Where there was once emotional dependence, a new kind of strength takes root, the strength of being whole within yourself. Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, requires stepping away from the collective, letting go of the mask, and walking alone for a while. And that's exactly what you're doing when you choose to become unavailable. You're not running away from the world, you're coming home to yourself. It's in this phase that a shift happens. You stop being a reactor, constantly adjusting to outside forces, and start becoming a creator, shaping your reality from the inside out. The people who feel uncomfortable with your absence, they're revealing something important. They never wanted you. They wanted the role you played. And now that you're no longer playing it, they don't know what to do with you. That's your liberation. Yes, you'll lose people, but you'll find yourself. Yes, you'll leave certain spaces, but you'll reconnect with your essence. Yes, you'll be misunderstood, but you'll start to be respected. Maybe not by many, but by the right ones. Because here's the truth. When you're no longer available for anything and everything, you become valuable, you become rare, you become unforgettable. This is a rebirth, the start of a life where you're not settling for emotional scraps, not engaging in mind games, not clinging to connections that drain you. From now on, you only accept what aligns with your peace, your truth, your wholeness. And if you've made it this far, it's because some part of you already knows. You're ready. You've understood that being loved means nothing if the cost is abandoning yourself. Real self-love begins when you choose yourself, even if it means walking alone for a while. So I'll ask you, are you ready to be misunderstood, to be rejected, even to be disliked, all for the sake of your own freedom? If this message has resonated with you, write in the comments, "I choose my peace." Let's see how many are ready for this transition. And remember, this isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of a different kind of life, one where you are no longer defined by how available you are to others, but by how deeply you honor yourself. Now, keep watching the next video. Trust me, it's the most important step you can take after this one, much more important than you might imagine. See you there.